Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to be going over a couple of topics today, different topics. The title's Black Redpill. I would like to share the screen. Show what I'm watching real quick, if it'll load. Oop. Ugh. I think he's tired of me watching this.
To that point, that's when you check out. And that's when I have found personally that that's the best time to sort of just say, okay, yeah, I'm going to lose this argument, but not because I'm wrong. And so when a woman says, who hurt you? Myron did this and Donovan did this as well, is they think that that is a shaming tactic. And in a sense it is too, but it is also an appeal to emotion. It is trying to turn that, again, it's like, I'm out of gas, but it's trying to turn the conversation back from a reasonable, rational appeal to reason back to an appeal to emotion. So when no woman cares about who hurt you. So if you think that this is shaming and you respond to it in an emotion from an emotional core, you are buying into the really the fundamental intent of who hurt you. Now, again, who hurt you online, who hurt you on a Twitter post, whatever, that's just a stupid me. That's just a casual dismissal. And really what it's saying is, I got nothing left. In the case where you're actually speaking face to face, and a woman brings that up, and often they do, it's usually presumes the point. It's a logical fallacy if you think about it. So it's not so much about shaming It's not so much about trying to humanize you. It's not so much about like, oh, well, the only reason you're saying what you're saying is because some woman at some point in history, in your personal history, has hurt you, and therefore that's why you think the way that you think. And the problem that I see, and guys, here's, even if you're like a hardcore, you know, well-meaning red pill guy, the mistake is to believe her. The mistake is to think that she's actually starting it from the perspective of trying to disqualify you because somebody hurt you. That's a mistake. It's a mistake to get wrapped up into that, because any conversation, any kind of counter that you have because of who hurt you, if you come away from the rational side of things, if the appeals to reason, and you start speaking the language of emotion, you've lost. You're done. Because you believe that she actually thinks that the only reason you're who you are and why you're the way is she's psychoanalyzing you. You think that she's honestly wants to psychoanalyze you. No, it's a dismissal. It's, I got nothing left. Whenever you hear who hurt you, it's, I got nothing else to say. That's one way of women kind of responding to an argument that they don't have any counter to. Another one is, well, I guess I should just go kill myself, right? Or I guess I should just give up on dating altogether. I got that response from those same girls too as well. It's like they have no counter to it, so they throw their hands up in disgust. That's one way of dealing with it. Then you've got the Giga Karen who's says, oh, well, I guess I'm just going to die. I would rather die alone. Okay, well, that's another way of dealing with it. Another way of dealing with a lack of a counter argument is who hurt you, because then it puts the onus of the entire conversation, what you have set up to that point, all of those stats and everything that you've broken down for her in as reasonable and rational, empirical way that she had incontrovertible evidence, right? Here it is right here. I got nothing, but the fact that you are saying this to me means that there's something wrong with you. Because we live in an age of feels before reals. We live in the age of ego. We live in the age of emotionalism. Emotionalism is the religion of this age. And there is no greater appeal to that emotionalism than who hurt you. Because it presumes the point. It presumes that there's something wrong with you. There had to be something in your personal history that turned you into this horrible misogynist who appeals to reason and rationality that she has no counter argument for. But the fact that you're even saying this means that you're not part of the emotional society. Here we have the reasonable society, and here we have the emotional society. And you're over here speaking the language of reason and rationality and empiricism and objective observations and stuff. And here's the stats, here's what's going on, here's what's going to happen, likely to happen to you. Probability, right? Reason. Here's the emotional side. This doesn't feel good to me. Remember when I say that men and women communicate differently? Women communicate covertly, men communicate overtly. Women focus on the context of a conversation, meaning the feelings. How did the conversation make them feel before they consider the information? Men, on the other hand, usually start from a position of rationality and reason. So unless they're really angry, I'm not saying men aren't actually emotional. We are, but we start from a rational, reasonable position. Usually, men say what they mean and mean what they say. That makes you honorable, right? That makes you have integrity. You have respectability because your word is your bond. Remember that back in the day? And that's because men speak the language of overtness. We focus on the information, the content of the conversation. We focus on that first. What's the problem I have to solve? How do I solve it? Deductive reasoning. How do I solve this problem? How do I get from point A to point B? Because there's a problem and I need to solve it. Information, give it to me. We'll get it worked out. But what happens is when a woman says who hurt you, she's presuming that the right way to approach the data and everything else that you just presented to her, for which she has no counter argument to, the right way to interpret that is from an emotion, from the language of emotion, from the world of emotion. And that's where this society, that's where Western society, gynocentric society, lives today in feels before reals. So how do I drag him and get him to speak my language? I can't counter any of the stuff that he's saying, but I want him to agree with. I want to win. I want to have the last word. And the way that women have the last word is they drag men from the rational into the emotional. And there's a much larger scope to this whole thing. You're probably figuring that out right now. But when a woman says, who hurt you. What she's saying is, you're wrong. Everything you've said that's right is wrong from the world that I live in, from the feelings that I have right here. So the only way you would come to the conclusions you have, the only reason you would want to have this debate with me in the first place is because someone somewhere along the way hurt you, emotionally damaged you, crushed your little soul. And usually that's what, and once you buy into that, and once you go, hey man, every guy's been hurt. As soon as you say that, you're in the emotional side. You've lost the argument right there. As soon as you say, oh, well, when you think that you need to humanize yourself and say, well, every guy has been hurt, right? That's why I'm qualified to talk about the things that I talk about. Once you get into that, you're speaking her language. You just lost the debate. Instead of saying, look, here's what you're doing. I understand this, again, calling it out. You're already in rational, reasonable land anyways, so you might as well go all the way. What you do is you say, look, I know where you're going with this. I understand this. This is the point of diminishing returns. The reason why this is the standard trope to say to a guy when you have no other counter argument is because what you want to say is you're in the right. And you believe you're in the right, and all your girlfriends behind you and all the male feminists that are white knighting for you and simping for you as well, they think you got hurt too. Because no one who thinks the way that the rest of us do, the group, the larger global tribe that's behind me in emotional land, no one thinks the way you do. You're a misogynist. You're a chauvinist. There's something wrong with you. You're a misogynist, right? And there's something wrong with you. Well, what could that, because you don't think like us emotional people do. And the reason why you are even bringing this up or bringing me on the show or having me talk to you, even if it's across the coffee table, is because someone hurt you. And this is you venting, and this is you projecting. And now suddenly we get really Freudian, right? Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud. Now suddenly we want to talk about projection, right? Suddenly we want to talk about catharsis. So this is your catharsis. We have become armchair psychologists, and the only thing most women have as a reference, whether they know so or not, is falling back on ancient psychotherapy terms. And so they're dragging you from your rational, reasonable state into their conversation. Now, remember, if you are trying, this kind of goes back to, I get a question a lot. I say, well, should I tell my girlfriend, or what if my girlfriend finds out that I'm red pill? Or I don't want to speak the language of emotion. I don't want to be covert. A woman should say what she means what she says. She should come over to me, right? She should come over to the rational, reasonable side. First of all, that's not going to happen. And second of all, whenever you reveal whenever you reveal the red pill, or what you're doing, really, your red pill awareness, and in a sense, when you're showing statistics and realities and empirical truths that the red pill praxeology presents for us, when you do that, you blow any chance of ever having an emotional connection with that woman, because you don't have an emotional connection. You're not starting there. You're starting from a rational, reasonable. Women don't fall in love with guys rationally. They do so from a point of emotion. They fall in love with that guy, or they want to have sex with that guy, or they want to be intimate with that guy, not because he stated his case to the judge and she goes, well, you know what? You're right. I'm gonna give up Chad, and I'm gonna give up the hot guy in the foam cannon party, and I'm gonna give up all that stuff that makes me feel good because you stated your case so well that I agree with you. Your Honor, case dismissed. That's not how relationships start. It's a feeling. It starts an emotion, and that's usually where women never exit from. So the conversation is an emotional conversation. It's not a rational conversation. It works great in physics. It works great in chemistry, right? It works great in mathematics, but it does not work when it comes to women. So once you start doing that, once you make appeals to reason, you can forget about making an emotional connection with that woman. I got that when I was on Fresh and Fit with Hotep Jesus. I was the guy who was sort of the clinician, right? I was the guy who was like spelling things out, and here's evolutionary psychology and evolutionary biology and anthropology and sociology. And, ooh, look at the big head on Rolo, right? Where in the meantime, Hotep Jesus is talking about, man, it's all about vibes, man. It's all about vibing. And, if I'm vibing with that girl, and girls will say the same thing because they speak that same language of emotion. I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to say that or speak that. In fact, it's brilliant. That's really the heart of game. But also, the red pill teaches you the praxology and the mechanics of what's going on. While you're speaking the language of emotion, you're still thinking, okay, here's where we're going, here's what's going to happen next, I got to move to this point, like that kind of stuff. It's much more reason-based, whereas like game tends to be a little bit more emotional-based. It's still pragmatic, it's still logistical, but I've got to go from point A to point B, but it's still speaking that language. So when a woman says, who hurt you, remember this. It is not, first of all, it's a disingenuous dismissal. And it is, you're speaking a language that I don't want to speak anymore. And I want to win this argument, or I want to go back to my nice, comfortable, happy hope that I'm going to find the right guy, find Mr. Right, settle down and have these kids, right? I want to have my cake and eat it too. And you're telling me that I can't. And everything since the time I was a 5-year-old little girl to now that I'm 25 or I'm 35 has informed me that I can have it all. And that feels good to me. And now you're saying that I can't. Now you're showing me these statistics that say, statistically, I'm going to be single, childless, and have a lot of cats and box wine for the rest of my life. And whether that's true or that's not, it still doesn't feel very good, does it? So you've got to find some way to sort of connect even after that. But the mistake is to think that that is a genuine question. It's not. We don't care about trying to dig up old wounds or take the Band-Aid off or something like that. The presumption is always you are wrong because you're not emotional. You're not part of the club. You're not part of the rest of the world that agrees with her. My girlfriends are right here and they think you're hurt too. My male feminist allies say the same thing. They think that you're hurt too. Let's talk about your hurt. And so that what that does is it reframes the conversation and the debate. So now it becomes about you and personalizes it and makes it emotional. And if you buy into that and if you go along with that, then you've basically lost it. You've lost everything, because everything that you built up, all of that the quality debating skills, right? All of the stats that you dug up, all of the empiricism that you used, all of that flies right out the window the moment you go, well, it doesn't matter because I've been hurt like anybody else. And once you cop to that, you're done, because now they got you. So when women say to me, they say, "Who hurt you?" I go, "I know what you're doing. No one's hurt me. No one. I've been married for 25, well, close to 25 years right now, right? I've had, I got a 40 notch count. I don't regret a single one of those. I never had meaningless sex, right? I enjoyed what I had when I was having it. There are some women that I wish I had not become intimate with, but who doesn't, right? But it's not about hurt. You're just trying to reframe the argument here. And the presumption, and women believe this, by the way, wholesale. They believe that they are in the right and that there could only be one solution. The only reason you're throwing this at me to the point where I have nothing left is because there's something wrong with you. So you are damaged. Something's wrong with you, because if there weren't, you would think the way that we do. You would think. You wouldn't even have this conversation. You'd be vibing, right? You would already be speaking the language of emotion and chick crack and superstition and woo-woo magical thinking and metaphorical truths and all this other stuff, instead of sticking to your guns and sticking to the rational, reasonable debating that you've probably spent a lot of time trying to prepare for or have been reading about. There's a real danger, I think, for guys who believe that women should logically, rationally, reasonably want them. And they get really upset when they see the hot guy in the foam cannon party nailing the girl that they've been dreaming about and have been trying to prove their quality to milady for so long. And usually that proving is, I got a job, I got a degree in physics, I see the stats, I know all these things. And usually when guys get to a point, they're like, okay, women aren't rational. They're never going to go after me because of a rational perspective. It's got to be from an emotional. There's have to be an emotional connection. There has to be some sort of emotional impact in that woman for her to actually want to get with you at some point. And that, I think, is a real tough sell for guys, particularly the 80%ers, like the 80% of guys who are sort of like the low SMB guys today. They can't understand why the problem doesn't resolve, right? A plus B equals C. They don't understand how they get to that point. And so when a woman says, "Who hurt you?" they buy into it. They think that they misinterpret that as genuine interest or genuine desire to know you. Oh, well, I guess we can just be friends then. No, it's a dismissal. It's a dismissal, but it's also, I should say that in here at the end here, I should say that it's also a reaffirmation of that woman's belief in the blue pill conditioning and the hopes and dreams and idealism that she is sold as a woman in a gynocentric social order. So if she can drag you from your rationality and put you into an emotional state and make you debate why you said all this rational stuff in the first place from an emotional center, that reaffirms her investment in, okay, maybe all hope isn't lost. Maybe I shouldn't be despondent because of all of these stats. Maybe he's just throwing this at me because in the end, I'm going to win anyways. So it reaffirms the idealistic hope that she has that she's going to find the right guy and she's going to have the 2.5 kids. And she was so crazy in high school, in college, but now she's had her fun and now she wants to get serious. And now she's going to find the beta in waiting. She's going to find the guy that Sheryl Sandberg says, oh, don't worry. And when you get to be 29, 30, 31 years old, there'll be a guy there who wants to be an equal partner and wants to, do his share and wants an opinionated woman. And the fantasy, she still believes. She can go back to believing in what her ego, her personality has been invested in for most of her life. For whatever the media or gynocentric social order has, or popular culture, the media, religion, maybe, school, whatever it is that has Disney Pixar has taught her that she not only can expect and is entitled to, but she also deserves. And so when she is confronted with stats, or she's confronted with things that confound that doesn't feel good. In fact, it makes her feel depressed that she's not going to get that there is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And so when you tell her that, her only option is to drag you into an emotional center. So when a woman says, who hurt you, the correct answer is not to go, well, there was Becky and there was Joni and there was Jenny and there was Susie, and don't have that conversation. Because she doesn't care. That's not the question she's asking. That's not the interest she's displaying. She's not displaying interest. She's saying, who hurt you? Because anybody who would say the things you do, who would be against emotional society, there must be something scrambled in your brain. And somebody must have scrambled it. Let's talk about that. It's straight out of the book of Oprah. It's straight out of Dr. Phil. We're talking about, like, when somebody says, who hurt you, we expect to hear that from a therapist. We expect to hear that from, sit on the couch and talk about your feelings. Who hurt you? Let's resolve your ancient hurt. What about here's a great one. Mommy didn't love you enough, did she? That's the presumption. The presumption it's presuming the point. It's a logical fallacy, right? It's bad debate. It presumes a truth. It presumes begging the question? I think that's the debate term for it, is the presumption is you must be hurt. Hey, everybody, he's hurt. Let's talk about his hurt. Instead of what he's saying that we don't have any counter argument to. Mommy didn't love you enough. You're an incel. Who hurt you? All of those are the same question. All of those are the same petition to drag you over into an emotional state. To say, oh, you don't get laid. That's little dick energy. There's another one. And we say, oh, those are shaming tactics. And they can be. But what's the purpose of those? What's the purpose of that shaming tactic? What's the purpose of the technique, the methodology? And that's what I wanted to get at in today's show. Because I see a lot of guys fall, and very well-meaning guys who read my book, guys who I associate with, fall into this emotional trap. It's a mistake to speak that language, because that's a petition, I guess, to drag you from the way that you're thinking and maybe make you question why you are, right? To almost gaslight you, like to make you think, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I do have some hurt. And maybe I do have some hurt. Maybe I do need, but who cares, right? And as soon as you get into that and you get your insight and your brain starts, the male hamster starts going, you've lost it. You're done. You need to remember when someone says, who hurt you, like face to face says, who hurt you, that is the point of diminishing returns. There's nothing else after that. So there you have it. That's today's show. 30 minutes. Yeah. Okay. I will be back on Saturday on Rule Zero. Troy Francis will be hosting that show. That will be 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. If you have not picked up the Rational Mail, wish I hadn't put this up. Book 4, Religion, is now on sale. The audiobook is not out yet. It should be done by the end of May, I believe, is what Sam Bada is telling me right now. However, you can pick up the Kindle version, and you can get the print version, which I highly recommend since I did it all. And I think that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. And if you have any questions, if you want to comment about this, I'm more than happy to have the discussion with you. Take it to the comments, and I will see you guys later.
So there's one video in particular I wanted to take a look at. It's dealing with police brutality, violence, and stuff like that. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. If I okay. No one gives this. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and share this. I'm watching this slow motion version.
Have you seen any weapons? Have you seen any weapons?
We need a police officer here now.
Do you see any weapons?
So I took a look at the video. These are my initial thoughts. From what I saw, it looked pretty hairy. I think it deserves to have another. So I think it deserves to have another look at it. The particular video I'm reviewing, it happened in Columbus, Ohio, I believe, and so yeah, I'm gonna take one more look at it and just give my opinion on it after I do that. I know my initial thoughts because I've already looked at it once, but I'm gonna look at it again.
Hey, what's going on? Hey, what's going on? Hey, 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 get down, get down, get.
Okay, first thing.
Officers were dispatched at 4:35 p.m. and the first officers arrived at scene at 4:44 p.m. The first video we're going to show you in a one-officer car. He was second shift.
All right, so first off, I think over here there's some sort of altercation, and he came pretty much at the heat of the altercation. You have these two that at least they're not directly combative at the moment, and it looks like he's just trying to understand what's going on, but this is my initial impression of the video.
What's going on? Hey, what's going on?
All right, so immediate escalation here. These two aren't being extremely violent. They have an immediate escalation from these people in this area.
Hey, hey.
So obviously, this one, if you look,
What's going on?
so these aren't the immediate aggressors. The real action's happening right here.
Hey, what's going on? Hey, hey.
So it looks like
Hey. What's going on? Hey, what's going on?
this person, whoever that is, right there, and this person are going at it. Now, I don't know who's at fault, but that's the initial takeaway I get out of it.
Hey, 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 hey.
Now, obviously, they got knocked out. Okay, now, here's the first thought. So, I'm guessing, so my concern is he drew the gun.
Hey, hey.
So, if you see, he immediately drew the gun, but I'm kind of curious if he actually saw a knife before he drew the gun.
Hey, hey.
So, bam, she's on the ground. Of course, the one he's drew the gun out on, I'm guessing she had a knife.
What's going on?
I'm curious if she was holding the knife. Can't really see that.
Hey, hey, get down, get down, get down.
I do see. Oh, so this dude. So you got a lot of things happening. You got one chick pushing down one chick, and then watch this guy.
Get down.
He kicks the girl, and then you have this lady here. And I remember seeing this video. I saw this already. She's holding a knife, and it looks like she's about to stab this lady right here. Yeah, so without even saying it, I know this stuff is going on all over too. Oh man. Oh boy. So initial thoughts. First off, so yeah, so you kind of saw the people who were on the left side. They weren't immediately violent. The violence mainly was coming from the people on towards the back area, back up by the garage. So I'm gonna keep analyzing this as much as possible. I'm really getting tired of seeing these things, but at the end of the day, it helps to be informed, right?
and the first officers arrived at scene at 4:44 p.m. Here, 29, see off.
Right. Let's see what else we can figure out. So we left his squad car pretty quick. He's at a moderate pace. He puts his hands up so he can ascertain what's going on. Okay, so before he could actually figure out what's going on, the problem pretty much showed up right in his face. Bam! She's on the ground. I'm guessing she has a knife now in her hand. Okay, so here's the issue. So for the people, because I'm pretty sure she had a knife out. Well, I'm not completely sure she had a knife out, but I think that would probably be the only thing that would constitute trying to pull out a weapon. So it's a handgun. So she so bam, pulls out a handgun. So then the chick, so I'm guessing she had the knife because you see it while he's aiming it at her right there. She's pretty much rearing to go on at the lady in the pink. And of course you got two assailants, or you have two people attacking. From the looks of, you have one person here kicking that girl, and you have this girl right here, the one in the pink, looks neutral in this situation, and this lady charges towards her. It looks like with a knife, ready to stab her. And of course, I think that would be pretty much grounds for some type of force. Those are my initial thoughts. I'm not going to show the rest of it because I don't know what the rules are for YouTube. Stuff like that. But, oh man. All right. So yeah. So I think I wanted to do this video because I know a lot of this stuff is going on around the country. But here, so I'm going to share the screen and show some of the comments that are going on in that video. Bam. All right, here are the comments. So this guy says, "This is sad. Cop literally had 10 seconds to react after getting out of the car before a girl was in danger of being stabbed." And that's actually true. He didn't have time to ask questions or anything. It's unfortunate that a black youth was killed, but he also potentially saved a black youth from being stabbed, killed. I wish this played out differently for all parties involved. It was a really messed up situation. It wasn't very... it's a hairy thing. Of course, you get people, making fun of the guy for making a post, but I think he had a good point. And also, in some ways, the likes speak for themselves. You have 5,000 likes. Of course, you have people that agree and some that disagree. One says the shooting is not racially motivated. The officer saved someone's life. Unless the young lady with the knife, is colorblind. She knew the officers were there to break up the fight. So sad, but this situation is not George Floyd, which I don't know what. That situation in itself is kind of confusing, isn't it? Of course, someone comments about the officer's action, saying, she's just a kid, man. After he kicks the other little girl. Oop. All right, some other stuff I want to share too. Oh, not this one. Not that one. Not that one. Mediocre tutorials.
And, I had to analyze it and deal with it and think about it. And think about how any success I've had in life is because I managed to use those dark emotions in my work and channel them.
I didn't ask you for that. All right. All right. So, yeah, I was hoping I could get a group of black guys on here to actually talk about the Black Redpill, which is kind of the main point. Plus, I yawned, so there is that as well. Y'all stand by. Let's see if anybody else has got something going on. Oh. Looking at my own stuff. Ugh. Anything going on? Oh, of course. Of course, I'd be doing something while everyone else is doing something. Oh, wow. I like it. All right, y'all. Perhaps this is going to be a short one. I kind of feel like joining another one, but let's see what I can find. See if I can find something else. All right. So I do want to have a little bit of a little bit more content on this. I'm gonna try using BitChute. See if we can find some interesting videos on topic. Well, that's the one I was looking at right there. See what else I can find. Oh, here's something. This is good enough.
One of the jurors in the trial of Derek Chauvin has given an interview to CBS, and now we are getting a glimpse to the mindset of the jurors and why they said guilty on all counts. This juror was an alternate. So this means this individual, this woman, was not actually in the deliberations, did not actually say guilty. However, in the interview, she said she did feel Derek Chauvin was guilty. And it's actually rather fascinating and kind of sad, to be honest. Emotions rule the day. And I think this is obvious to most people who watch this. I'd be willing to surmise, I'd be willing to bet that many people who watch a channel like mine are more interested in logic and less interested in emotion. There's pros and there's cons to that kind of mentality, but I'm more interested in logic. Based on the facts in the case and not how I felt about them, I felt that perhaps there was an argument for manslaughter, but certainly not murder. And I think most people kind of fall into that position. Right now, the left is basically saying that people on the right and conservatives just think Chauvin was innocent. Well, you know what? Some do. I absolutely I think that's the case. In fact, there were many analysts who said the state did not prove their case. I was looking for any fact-based statement that said to me the state proved their case. And I'll tell you what I find scary about this. A few things. First and foremost, let me just preface this by saying I'm not a fan of agents of the state violently suppressing people, especially when it comes to like drug use and stuff. I understand there's nuance. I'm not speaking specifically about George Floyd. Not a big fan of the police system and the prison system in general. I'm for prison reform and police reform. I oppose private prison systems for what we have the state do. And we're not going to get reform at the state level if we allow this to placate us. Now, you got all these leftists claiming the riots worked. And I'm like, honestly, I think it was in spite of the riots, to be completely honest. This woman actually said the protests weren't a consideration for her. She's an alternate juror. She's come out with her face and name and said, here's what I felt. And she felt Chauvin was guilty. She said, I just don't understand how it went from a counterfeit 20 to a death. It's like, were you listening to the trial? No, she was overcome with emotion. She was.
I'm going to be honest. This particular topic, the most recent court case, it's kind of complicated. I don't know much about it. One thing I'll do before I end this stream, I'm going to give my thoughts on the whole Black Redpill that I brought up. First off, as a black person myself, I think we kind of do ourselves as a community, we do ourselves a disservice when it comes to how we conduct ourselves in the social sphere. One thing I would say is I understand the difficulties that us as a group, what we're facing. But when you're looked at, I have a feeling that people, when they look at us as a group, there's not a lot of, they don't really look at us with respect or admiration. And I know a lot of them, I can kind of hear a lot of people saying, well, I don't need them to look at me. I just need them to leave me alone. The problem is they can't leave us alone because our kind of system is making it so that we're kind of creating this, it's like anything that affects us, everyone has to pay attention to 100%, and they have to give their undying allegiance. BLM and all these other black institutions, they become like religions, and you have to bow down and worship them. Otherwise, you're a sinner and you're, you're a bad person. So, one thing I've learned, I'm not the moral superior to anyone, but a lot of these movements, they'd have you believe that I am, people that look like me are, even the people that are slightly darker than me are. Whatever you want to say about that. So yeah, You can probably see this is going to be a short feed, but just from the horse's mouth, understand this: the black red pill. What the black red pill is, it is essentially, actually, if I could find, there's a video where Kevin Samuels. So Kevin Samuels lays it out quite well, but I'm not even gonna see if I can find it real quick.
Anyway, the kids are getting out of school and I gotta go, but you know, my main goal again is create a family and save your family, keep your family together. And
I don't know how to find that. That's a difficult one to find. I'll just say it in my own words. So, pretty much, the black red pill. What the black red pill is, I'm going to do a video on this actually. The black red pill is understanding how you've been controlled by the media, how you've been controlled as an American of African ancestry, how a lot of your dignity has been stripped from you by way of making you dependent, emotionally dependent, financially dependent, structurally dependent, pretty much any type of dependence you can think of. That's the black red pill. Now, if you wanted to actually take your power back as a black person, it would require you to actually gain some semblance of strength for yourself. Now, for the people who are watching, who are trying to actually help and support, the thing is, you're not helping and supporting. But I'll talk about this in another video on the channel. It's going to be called the Black Red Pill, and this is probably going to be a magnum opus, because I can kind of sense it's a long time coming. All right, that's the end of the feed.